Well, I have the pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker tonight, and that's someone, if you were with us last year, you know that our keynote speaker needs little introduction. Her name is Pamela Aberombie. She was born and raised right here in Carson City, and because of her love for history, she ended up with an undergraduate degree in history. Although most of her career, she says, has been in Indian education, she had the opportunity to work in preservation for 3 years as the executive director of the nonprofit Comstock Foundation for History and Culture, headquartered in Virginia City. She was the driving force behind the success of the initial renovation of the Donovan Mill in Silver City, initiating tours of Sutro, and revitalizing the Gold Hill Hotel History Lectures series that Cliff spoke at just this past week. And most of you know that last October, Pam very graciously hosted our society for a behind-the-scenes tour of the historic Donovan Mill in Silver City. Today, Pam serves on the board of directors of the Friends of Sutro Tunnel. The position gives her an outlet to share her passion for both history and for preservation. Tonight, she'll be talking about the historic Sutro Tunnel restoration project. So would you please join me in extending a very warm welcome to both a colleague and a friend, Pamela Aberombie.
Okay, can everybody hear me? If I have it on right. Check my notes. So I don't need to introduce myself. Stephen did a nice job. Actually, I had to write that for him, so I guess I did. Anyway, so the historic Sutro Tunnel, preserving the legacy. The Sutro Tunnel is something that has not been out there in the history. A lot of people have not been able to see it. We did get some tours in 2016 and 2017. There was tours in the early 2000s as well. But with some driving forces of a few people, we're bringing this project up and above, and we're trying to get it opened up to the public. So I think that if I push this button. Oh, that one. Okay. So I wanted to start with history and preservation because that's what brings us all together. We have a love for history. We have a love for preservation. So basically, what does history and preservation mean to us? Because we're in this field. We connect history to the present. We bring history alive through preservation projects, through history presentations, through our research, through different types of projects like Cliff Jennings' project. I absolutely love his model of the Hail and Norcross. And why is history and preservation so important? I put up this quote from the Nevada Department of Education and Social Studies Standards. If we don't know our past, we don't understand our present. So history is so much more important. Do I need to turn this off?
Sorry, I was just moving it out of the way.
That's my husband. And why do we absolutely flipping love history? It's discovery. We get to discover new facts. We get to discover new things from the past. It gives us purpose. We see purpose in it. One of my favorite is influencing perceptions of history. There's a lot of things that we learn about history or we hear about history that's not quite right. And so we dive into those primary resource documents, we dive into the research, and we discover that there's some little sequence of events that they're telling us not quite right. So when we bring it all together, we influence new perceptions of history. And also, history does satisfy our need for curiosity. Okay, so the Sutro Tunnel site, I wanted to start with the before, then and now. This is a photo of the Sutro site that does include the town of Sutro. Where's the pointer?
The center.
The middle. Oh, yay. Okay, so of course that's the pond, that's the mansion, the town of Sutro. This is the original mill, the original machine shop. This is a rendition that was restored in the 1980s. This is the mule barn. I don't think we can see the original mule barn. This is the warehouse. This is the warehouse. That's the wood shop. That's the wood shop. These are the only two original structures on the property today. But anyway, that's a great picture of the then and now. So just to set a little background, I think a lot of us know about Adolf Sutro and the Sutro Tunnel. Without hesitation, Adolf Sutro is a man of intelligence and motivation who was born in Prussia. He immigrated to the U.S. in 1850. He shortly thereafter went to the West Coast in the late 1850, and then the call to Washoe, he came to the Comstock in 1860. He's an educated man in mining engineering, and he excelled at multiple professions. He managed a cloth mill in Prussia. He was a merchant in San Francisco, and then he did a little bit of merchanting in Stockton. He dabbled in ore processing techniques. In 1860 and 1861, he worked with chemist Radolf, I guess that's his name right, which led to his short-time career in milling. And then, he devised an idea of draining the Comstock mines and improving the ventilation for underground mining in Virginia City. He was not the first to think of this, but he was the one that was driven to make it happen. He formed the Sutro Tunnel Company in 1864. His project was supported by state and federal legislation. He got the Sutro Tunnel Act of 1866 approved, and that's a federal legislation. But he struggled with local support. He couldn't get a lot of local support on the project, and a lot of that had to do with the Bank of California. We all know the saga of the Bank of California and their greed for control of the wealth of the Comstock. And it wasn't until the worst mining disaster, the Yellow Jacket mine, that he finally got the local support. Because if he would have had the tunnel, those men, it said that the men would have been able to have an escape route from the Yellow Jacket fire. So in October of 1869, tunnel operations began. That was shortly after the disaster. And then in July 1878, the main tunnel connected to the Savage mine at the 1640 level. So Sutro envisioned a self-contained operation with a town of Sutro where his workers and their families could live. We saw that in the then and now picture. The tunnel was engineered using light calibration, triangulation surveying, and other engineering practices of the time, which I'm sure some are still used today. I'm not an engineer, so I can never talk on that topic. The tunnel had 4 air shafts between Dayton and Virginia City. I believe one of those air shafts was discontinued during Sutro's era. Each of the air shafts had little shacks with a caretaker that was up the center line to Virginia City. The tunnel was 3.8 miles deep. It went from Dayton up to Virginia City, 3.8 miles. After they made the first connection, they developed the north and south laterals, and then within the tunnel portal there was drainage and box ditches to contain the water that was draining out. The first connection at the Savage, the engineering was less than a foot off, and that was in 1878. So the engineering was quite something. The primary engineer on the project was Herman Schuessler, which we all know was the engineer on the Marlette water system. So here is a picture of the equipment. This is a transit. It's on that thing right there. This is a picture of the actual transit. And then they had center line points that went all the way up the center line, and then they used this engineering equipment to engineer the tunnel, which is pretty amazing to dig a tunnel from Dayton to Virginia City, 3.8 miles long, using various different kinds of mining engineering equipment. This today is what's the base. If I go back, yeah. So the base, this thing right here, that base, is right here, and it's still there today. These center points are still, you can still see them. They're in different intervals going up this line. I don't know if it goes like that, if it goes like that, if it goes up to Virginia City, but those center points are still on the property. So the Sutro Tunnel, during its time, it drained 4 million gallons a day. A couple of years ago, there was I think it was the state water engineer came out to measure it, and it was 26 gallons a minute, which is about 40,000 gallons a day. so it's still draining today. They applied the unique use of mules because they adapted well underground. Horses did not work underground. Some of the mules did go blind, and they became like family to the workers. By completion, the Comstock mines had waned, and Sutro soon, he saw the writing on the wall, and he sold. And then he went on to San Francisco and became a San Francisco legend. He was the mayor of San Francisco for a while. He built the Sutro Baths and the Cliff House and a couple other things. It's another story of the Comstock wealth invested in San Francisco. The Sutro Tunnel Company continued operations in one form or another until the early 1900s. They actually had electrical mule carts, so they stopped using the mules. There was a mill there, so they had different operations on the property. I think it kind of finally ceased in the 1940s. So here's another then and now. This photo over here is quite a bit closer than this photo here, but you can kind of see here's the the machine shop, which is pretty large. We saw that machine shop, and we get to see another picture. This is the rendition that they did in 1980. There's a portal, All these buildings are gone. I'm not sure what those buildings are. Haven't seen a lot of photos on those except for right up close. Here's the warehouse, which I believe would be somewhere out here, or may not have been built yet. Here's some then and now. First we'll show you the then of the Sutro Tunnel portal. This one is kind of similar to the photo we already saw, and then this one you can kind of see the buildings that used to be next to the portal. There is a hole next to the portal right up behind this building. It goes into the side of the earth. I don't know if it was like somewhere where they stored for keeping stuff cold, but it's interesting, that hole there. And then here, I'm not sure what year this one is. I would say about the turn of the century, unless somebody in here knows the date of this photo. But it looks like it's quite a bit later. And then this is today. This was during one of the tunnels that I organized in either 16 or 17. So the Historic Sutro Tunnel Restoration Project. This kind of started about late 2016 after the first tour. We did kind of a assessment of the property, the buildings that were salvageable, what we could salvage on the buildings, and we did a little projection of costs. So we really started with cleaning up and removing a lot of debris and modern junk. We also started buttoning up the buildings to keep pigeons out, because pigeons, when they live inside the buildings, they do a lot of damage. And then you have to protect yourself when you go inside and clean it up because of the pigeon droppings. And we really focused on stabilization and eliminations of dangers. I'm going to show you two projects that I lost a lot of sleep on, thinking we were going to lose the buildings. One was the warehouse, the other was the mill barn, because of the instability of these buildings, and one of them there was a danger next to the building. We hope to move on to phase 2, which will do the actual restoration, where we'll bring it back to historically accurate qualities of the buildings. And so I'm going to start with two projects that were really easy. And one of them is with the mule barn, and then we have a major project with the mule barn that I'm going to wrap up with that we just completed recently. This is the original mule barn, according to this writing under here. The mule barn that's on the property now, I'm not sure when it was built. It is built a little bit south of where this original mule barn is, according to what I've been told. But this is the original mule barn that is no longer there, but we have the mule barn today that we're saving. First, we fixed this mule barn door, and a volunteer went and bought the paint. Whoops. So we have to go back and fix the paint on the door because it's now not the right paint. It's not historically accurate. We have to do like paint chip analysis and so forth to match that paint, but at least we can go in and out of the mule barn and we don't have to deal with this. And then the machine shop. This is the original machine shop. I think this is a drawing or a photo drawn over, but it's the machine shop, and it's quite large. And then there's Sutro's mansion up there. And it's close to the portal. So today, this is the, whoops, whoa, slow down. This is the rendition. Pete Leonard, he's been part of the Sutro Tunnel Company. His family actually purchased the Sutro Tunnel Company from the company that purchased it from Sutro. So Mr. Leonard's family goes back quite far with this property. He owns a portion of the Sutro Tunnel Company, which is who owns the property today. I think in the 80s is when he, I don't know if he restored part of it or he just built this rendition, which was originally, this is the machine shop, and then this is what, dang it, my finger's shaking, I think. Whoa, sorry, I'm probably making you dizzy. So this is what there is today. What we did on this project is that cupola had big gaping holes. And so we went in on the inside and we buttoned it up so that they couldn't get out. A day after it was done, I went there and I caught this picture and I thought, oh, all those pigeons are wondering what happened, they can't get back in. And it was like the day after and I'm like, you ain't getting back in, guys. You already created enough of a mess in there. And then here's the wood shop, which I believe is one of the only 2 original buildings on the property. We thought it actually was a machine shop until we cleaned it and found the floor, and the floor is wood, so we changed the name to the wood shop. There's all this debris. These are old historical certificates, Sutro Tunnel certificates. They've now been moved into the machine shop because that building is contained. There's not holes in the walls and the roof and all that where things can come in and damage them. A lot of them did get damaged from pigeon droppings. Underneath are ore samples. There's 4 boxes here of ore samples. I haven't looked at them closely enough to see where the ore samples are from. They could be part of when there was mining done on the property, either in Sutro's era or later on. Eastern Oil did go in there and try to do some mining. But we did remove all this junk. This is facing south in the building, this is facing north. We did remove that toilet and that tire. You can't remove the chemicals because you have to dispose of them a certain way. Tires you can dispose of, but you have to pay to dispose of them. The only thing remaining now in this building, this has been removed since the person who owns it came and got it, is the Sutro bar, which I believe Pierce might remember that because he was the Sutro bartender. That was in the warehouse, but now it's stored in the wood shop. That's the only thing that's left in this building now. What was on down around here was about 4 feet of pigeon droppings and rat droppings and carcasses. I spent 5 hours shoveling and wheelbarrowing all that out while the men moved all of this stuff out. But we did get the building cleaned so that you can actually see the floor. Pretty proud of shoveling all that poop. It was hard work. Someone said, you gotta stop, you gotta stop. I said, I'm not gonna stop till I'm done, because I'll drop, and I did drop. And then this building was actually leaning a bit east. This is a symptom of the leaning of the building. We had a contractor come out and he straightened it out. And what's interesting about preservation, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I've done a bunch of preservation work, and this is one of the 3 times that when we moved the building to make it straight again, that something popped right back into place. And this chimney here was leaning, but when we straightened the building, it popped right back into place. It's pretty amazing. On the mule barn, which is one of the last projects, the most exciting project, things popped right back into place. It's amazing. This picture doesn't really show that it's straightened because it's not really a significant straightening. This is the only part where you'd be able to see that when it's straight, it changes the effects. But we also are working on the roof. We reinforced the rafters. This picture was done by Justin Hensley with the Aerial Nevada. He took some photos. We have partnered with the Snowshoe Thompson chapter of the Evitus Clampers, and they come out and volunteer. They have actually filled up about, I think I've counted 8 dumpsters because we dispose of stuff like the junk that was in the wood shop. We get rid of all this stuff so that we are just working with historic items and the buildings and not junk and crap and poop. But they did come and they reinforced a couple of these beams and they closed up this, and then our current volunteer contractor who's on our board, he brings his crew out to do a lot of work, and he was supposed to come out Friday to finish the roof, but I procrastinated my presentation, so I had to practice today, and I didn't go out and get a photo of the wood shop roof done. We do have enough of the corrugated metal. I've got it all piled over here to finish up the roof, so I'm hoping that roof is done. This is another project. This is a then and now of the warehouse. Again, it's one of the 2 remaining buildings that were original. I really want to restore this loading dock around this building. Right now, it's not an imminent danger. It's not a stabilization, so it's a phase 2 project. It's restoration. So it's kind of put on the back burner right now. Eventually, we want to redo the windows. We did, when we cleaned out the meal barn, we found a stack of historic windows. And when you go to do windows, I know a lot of you may know preservation pretty well, that those are pretty, the Comstock Historic District's pretty finicky about windows. And of course, I've already talked to Bordeaux about the porch and how we can do it. There's rocks under here as the foundation, and we want to do an actual real foundation so that when we drop these, the loading dock on, that it looks, or that it's safe, that it's strong. It's not something that's waverly when you walk on it. So I'm kind of obsessing over this building because it's one of the 2 last original buildings on the property, but it's on the back burner right now. But this is a great then and now photo. This was an imminent danger. This is the south side of the warehouse. I'm not sure if this is how historically accurate this side of the building looks. However, this cottonwood tree in our lovely Nevada winds, and it's right in the angle of that southwest wind that we get during the summer. This thing is 100% dead. So we finally found a tree cutting service that would give us a good deal. He came out and he cut down this tree. As you can see, the tree's gone. And then there's 2 cottonwoods on the west side that were impeding the dock, the loading dock on the west side, so he cut those down. And the caretaker, I asked him to have him cut this one down, but he didn't. So, and I wasn't there, so it's still standing. But it's not really impeding, it's not the porch, or the loading dock, and it's not threatening the building. So that was one of the imminent dangers that I obsessed on when I first got involved with this project, because it was very scary being so close to that warehouse. Whoops, I did it again. Ooh, that's the exciting part. Don't see that yet. Okay, so the portal. In 1999-2000, Mr. Leonard restored the portal. And in early 2000s, as a fundraiser for the Fourth Ward School, he did tours of the Sutro properties. And people were able to walk in 40 feet. Somebody in here may have went on that tour, but you were able to go back about 40 feet. In 2008, this cave-in occurred, and the portal became gated closed. We did a tour in 2016. This is what it looked like in 2016. We all know what happened in 2017. We had a very wet winter. There was a lot of runoff, and then this happened. This is a photo of Julie Mitchler. She's a volunteer on the project, and she zoomed in so it looks closer, but this is the same pile. You can see this wood log, that log, that log. This log, I believe, moved when that log fell on it, but this is the same as that, and then this is the cave-in that happened in 2017. Now, if I would have walked up above and looked at the top of the portal in 2016 when it looked like this, and realized what was going on, we could have prevented this. And that's what really drives me crazy, and it breaks my heart that I didn't walk above. Because, whoops, doggone it. Bear with me. Okay. This is, oh God. Is it me, or is it the thing?
It's the the remote.
Oh. Okay, this is what's above. In 2000, when they restored the portal, they didn't backfill this. And so I believe the water in 2008 caved in right here, but in 2017, we have all this that caved in. And so just a matter of walking up the hill, which is not hard at all, and looking at this, we could have prevented this. But now we have a lot of work. However, our volunteer contractor, he's like, I've got a mission, I'm going to make it happen. And he's talking to different engineers and different people of what the best way to fix this, because, you know, we've got, God, I'm so sorry. Okay, we got to deal with this and make it, reinforce it so that the portal is safe to walk in, is what our goal is. So, now here's the project that I am like absolutely excited about. I didn't get to see this. Julie Mitchler, she documented it, and I got to see the photos of the progression of this work. The mule barn was, I believe, one windstorm away from falling down. There's no vertical beams in here. There's no vertical beams. You can see this big sway. In the 2 years that I had been involved in this project, I saw this sway get worse. I don't know if you can tell here, but this is buckling. About right here, this manger is pulling off about 12 to 18 inches right around here. So this whole manger was pulling off. What we think was happening is that the roof was it was opening up like that and pushing the manger out. Before we could do anything, we had to clean it out. There was a boat in there. There was, in the northwest corner, there was tons of furniture. There's a little storage room here. There was plenty of rat life. I mean, they just make their whole huge nest. There was even a baby pigeon that one of the clampers took home, and now he's got a pet pigeon. Somebody sent me a picture, and the pigeon is actually living with him. But he took home a baby pigeon that we found in this corner storage area. All the stalls were full with stuff, which was breaking my heart because they're the mule stalls. They aren't stuff for tanks, or there's like some kind of tank in there. There was all kinds of junk, and there was a golf cart. So the clampers came again. They helped us clean it out. They find all these kind of odd things. If it's something that's part of the Sutro historic era, you know, of course we don't touch it, but there's a lot of weird things. I think there was like a ceramic oven, an urn or something, not an urn, but there's all kinds of really cool stuff that they got to take home and put in the golf cart. So that's how we could pay them. But anyway, we had to deal with this. This is where it was buckling. See how far? This is supposed to be against the wall. That's supposed to be against the wall. This is supposed to be against that east wall. The manger was actually pulling off of this east wall. See how this is popped up? These are pulled away. And then when our volunteer contractor came in, I think, was it a day or 2 days? Day and a half. Day and a half. Day and a half. Voila. Whoops. There. Voila. See how that's flush with the wall, flush with the wall, flush with the wall, popped right back into place. Everything's all back into place. That's what it was before. That's after. Is that amazing? It just popped right back into place. And then now here's the roof. Look at that roof. They reinforced the roof with those cross things to try to keep those things together. And you can see there's no buckling, there's no swag. I haven't gone out there to see it yet, but I'm just amazed. They had to remove some boards in here because they used 2 forklifts to deal with it. And they removed all the top of the wood on top of the manger, but they were all rotted out, so now that's a restoration project. So we can't do that till we figure out how to do it historically accurate. So anyway, that was the most exciting part of this project. I worried about this mule barn for for over a year, well over a year, watching it slowly swag more and buckle. Oh wait, there's one more picture. See how this is before and this is after. So when we arrange for you all to come out next year, you don't get to see this, you get to see this. So it's really exciting. And so there's a couple other projects that we really want to work on. This is one of the original projects that we decided was critical because it's so important to the portal. Although this building came in later, it's not seen in some of the original, those earlier photos. There's a lot of wooden buildings along there. But there's a little tray right here, and according to historians, that's where they put the candles for the mules and the laborers to go in to do their digging. Then there's also this part of the building, there was explosives stored in there. There's two over here, there's two explosive boxes that I put up on blocks and put tarps over them to try to protect them until we can get this building in good shape that we can put them back in there. There's also a pile of bricks that are historically accurate. I'm not sure who or how those got there, but they've been identified as historically accurate because we're going to have to redo all the brickwork along here. What's happened is the earth from the north has pushed onto the back side, and the earth here has pushed on and into the west side. Someone built a retaining wall in the 50s or 60s, probably the 60s or 70s. There's a retaining wall in there that's now been pushed. So what we've decided is we want to move the dirt from the west and the north side. There's a fellow who lifted the roof at the Donovan Mill, and he also lifted the Dazzit, because you remember the Dazzit was in really bad shape. Well, it since has been lifted, and they're working on straightening it out. His name's Jeff from Nevada Structure Movers. He recommended that we go at an angle, about 38, 45 degree angle, so that the, what's that?
45 standard.
45 standard, so that it doesn't, to slow down the earth pushing up against the building again. We're going to have to shore up, we're going to have to fix the internal structure, and we're going to have to rebuild this west wall. Then we might be able to close this door and then fix the bricks. But it's in pretty bad shape, and we're watching it get worse. My friend Paul Westbrook, he's just now joining the project as a volunteer. He's got a few angles that he thinks might work with this project. And then also we have the ice house, which is up on the hill to just a little bit to the south, towards the west of the portal. That's where they stored the ice. At least that's what a historian told me. It's got some historic brickwork here, so that's another project that I want to kind of tie into the whole property. It's kind of out there, kind of neglected, but my friend Ernie Winters took this picture during the 2017 tour. So the plans for the future, we want to reinforce the portal and remove the cave-ins, remove the cave-in debris. We want to address the structural issues at the Campbell building. We have a project that my friend Dan Webster and Julie are working on to label the equipment so that it could be a future self-guided tour. There's a lot of mining and milling historic equipment out there. There's a planner, there's ore carts, there's the electrical carts, there's tons of equipment. Some of it needs to be brought up on blocks so it's not sitting in the dirt. But anyway, labeling the equipment so that eventually create a historic park for public access. Since I've been involved with the property owners, this is what I've been talking about. When I was working with a nonprofit, we were partnering, I said, this has got to be the ultimate goal, is public access. Of course, Dayton could use some tourism boosts, and I think if we had a historic park out there, plus they have the Rock Point Mill Historic Park, Dayton could have a lot of potential for tourism. The Snowshoe Thompson chapter, they are working on historic plaques around the site. They have a plaque at the depot. It's their monument, Nevada Shape Foundation monument, and then they put a historic plaque on there. We have a dedication plan for the end of the month for the monument plaque for the portal. and then they'll kind of work their way around the property, developing these plaques. Of course, restoration, it's a little bit more difficult because you have to, be historically accurate when you go that route. When you're just trying to save buildings from falling down, it's a little bit easier, but there's a lot of work when you do the actual restoration. We got to fix that paint that volunteer bought the wrong color. And we got to fix the mule barn manger where they took off those slates of wood that were all rotted. And so this is kind of our plans for the future. I do anticipate, I'd love for the porch or the loading dock to be done by next October. And then the Friends of Sutro Tunnel, we're just kind of the driving force moving this project forward. And hopefully we're going to eventually get to this historic park. Might take us 2 or 3 years though. So just some photo credits. Ernie Winters, Comstock Photography. He documented the 2016 and 2017 tour. Julie Mitchler, she's right over here. She documented the projects that we're doing, and she's doing a lot of the documentation of the befores, the durings, and the afters. There's a lot of befores that she's worked on already. Justin Hensley of Aerial Nevada Drone Photography. And then the historic photos were UNR Special Collections, Stephen Drew, and Daniel Webster. So here's a little bit about Save Sutro Tunnels, or the Friends of Sutro Tunnel. There's our Facebook page. Now that I'm done with this presentation, I can start working on the Facebook posts again. Then here's our website, savesutrotunnel.com, and then the Friends of Sutro Tunnel Board of Directors, and you can take donations. So with that, I think I probably talked fast. If there's any questions, I think I'm ahead of time. Oh, let me get this. Yes, sir? Yeah?
Yeah. I probably already know the answer to this, but after you get through with all these projects, we live in Dayton, and so what we've always loved was going along Highway 50, and on a good day, if the traffic wasn't real bad, we could see the top of the tunnel when we're on 50. Is any of this project going to improve that vision of the top of the tunnel?
So you mean like the air shafts all the way up to Virginia City?
The top of the tunnel, on a good day, you could actually see it.
Oh, up in Virginia City.
All these projects, will that improve that at all?
I'm not sure, because that's part of the logistics we're dealing with, because of the property and the right-of-way, because the Sutro Tunnel Company owns the right-of-way along the center line of the tunnel all the way up, and then there's water rights that have to be dealt with. So that's the logistics and the legality stuff that we have to take a couple years, plus a feasibility study, because there was mining or there was milling on the property, so we have to take care of that as well. So I don't know if we'll go all the way up. I mean, I could envision having a historic walk where you get exercise and you go all the way up there. That would be really cool. So that's Cliff.
What's the condition of the facade of the portal?
The front?
Yeah.
It's not very good. Let's see what this way. I think I had it in the before, or then and now. Oops, there it is. Yeah, see, and since that last cave-in, when you saw the 2008 cave-in and then the recent cave-in, the water is now just coming in all over that floor. It's not staying in that box ditch. So it's a huge mess. I just kick myself for not walking up and seeing that mess.
And just to follow on, is it right past the upper arch of that wall that the cave-in happened?
It's right on the other side of that that white, the top of that white.
Right.
See, that's right there.
Yeah, right.
So they restored it so you could walk in about 40 feet, but this is about 10 or 15 feet. That's where that first cave-in is. And then the second one's about right there. Yes, sir?
Once you get past the cave-in, what's the rest of the tunnel, the condition of the rest of the tunnel?
We're trying to figure that out. I know Houston Oil, I think that's the mining company. They tried to do Houston Minerals. They tried to do some mining way back in there. I think that was in the 70s. Somebody said there's a cave-in about 70 feet. My father-in-law, he used to be the safety manager. Your dad? Risk manager? Anyway, he and Joe Curtis went back all the way to a wall, and they said when they got to that wall, they could feel the pressure of the water, and immediately turned around and left. But that was in the 60s or 70s, in the 70s. That was in the 70s. I'm not sure if Pierce has any stories. But we don't know. Someone says there's another cave-in, but I think that person's thinking of that cave-in. So between 2000 and 2008, you could walk 40 feet back. But I'm not sure what's past there. Yeah. Esther?
Yeah, when I was in my teens, we went out to the Sutro Tunnel, and at that time, it was owned by some private people, and I noticed that the timbers were 16 inches by 16 inches, and they were set on almost 16-inch centers.
In the portal?
As going in.
Oh, wow.
And I looked at those timbers, and I thought, I don't know that you could get that kind of timbers anymore, let alone prop it up so that you could go in any particular distance. And then I heard tell that timbers lasted about 75 years, and then they started, it would be dangerous to go in.
Yeah.
So the feasibility of opening up the tunnel cost-wise, to me, I think is astronomical.
Yeah, at one point someone had recommended that we have it engineered, and that person was involved in the restoration in 1999, 2000. But our volunteer contractor, he's got box culverts. He's talking about box culverts and concrete, and then do the wood facade so that it looks like wood. So do something strong, and then put the wood facade on it so it looks like it's wood, like original wood. We have a couple ideas that we're throwing around, but we're not jumping into it till we have a really good plan, because that is a mess. That would have been easy to deal with, but that is not. Is
Comstock water, water from the mines of the Comstock mines, is that what we're seeing pouring through the Sutro Tunnel to this day?
It's still draining about 26. Well, it was 2 years ago that a fellow came out and he said it's 26 gallons a minute, and I did the math. That's about 40,000. And the pond is still full of water. And then there is underground tubing, piping, or some kind that goes from the portal just outside in front of it down to the pond. So the caretaker, he knows all those workings, and so he makes sure that they still continue to drain. And then on the north side of the pond, there's a water fountain. I can't remember why, but there's the water's coming out of the ground and shooting up like a water fountain. Yeah, something. Yes, sir.
If the water, I'm assuming from what I picked up this evening, the water's flowing through the trenches along the right-hand side of the left-hand picture. What happens when it gets outside of the port? It looks like it's smooth ground.
Yeah, then it goes underground.
It dies on.
It goes underground to the pond. So.
What happened to the mansion?
The mansion burnt, and Dan might be able to help me with this. The mansion burnt in 1940, early 40s.
I had a disgruntled
Employee. Yeah. We lost a lot of buildings. There's like the then and now portal pictures. This photo here, all those buildings are gone. There's a lot of buildings that got burnt down. That's why I kind of obsess over the warehouse and the wood shop, because they're two of the original buildings. So.
Were the tracks that we see there only for the construction of the tunnel to get supplies in?
Yeah, they brought the dirt out and then they dumped it, because when you drive by, like somebody was talking about driving by, and you could kind of see the Sutro Tunnel property areas. Just to the south of it is a pile of tailings, because they brought the dirt out and then they dropped them over there. Yes, sir.
The original plan was to mine into the tunnel. They had the mineral rights to branch out with it and mine, but they never found much worthwhile.
Yeah, that's what I heard. There was nothing. There wasn't even ore, because there was nothing in it. It was just dirt. Just like when they tried to mine American Flats, and ended up just giving up because it was just dirt. The mule barn, the project. Yeah.
Back. I want to see
The original?
no, right there.
Okay.
There's two purlins and board back road on that side.
Are you talking about this piece? Board batten?
Yeah, what it is, two boards together, another board over.
Oh.
It's not line board. And one of the tricks that I've learned for years is you photograph it as you tear it apart. That tells you how it's built.
When you tear it apart? Yeah, yeah, Julie documented this whole process of saving that.
Go back, take a look, you make that pour it at the top, pour it at the bottom, and lean it in the back.
So there's on the bottom, and then top.
Pour it that runs horizontal on the top of the wall, probably pour it on the top of the wall, at the bottom, and in between.
Yeah, Julie's got a lot of pictures, so, and that's what we document, like the porch, she's already documented, well, I keep calling it the porch because it's a porch right now, but
It
she,
didn't look like this, but they had red shingles on
and then Justin Hensley had a lot of photographs from the drone aerial that we got.
Excuse me, are you familiar with the story of ex-President Grant? Was that the tunnel?
No, I know the story of when he was in Virginia City, and I don't recall the story of him.
Well, supposedly after he, well, it's documented in some books, he was on a tour and he came out and he went through the tunnel and he went up the mine workings, the shaft, up on the top of Virginia City. And then supposedly he said, I don't know if it's true, that's as close to hell as I ever want to get.
I know he went in one of the underground. I have a photo of the group he went with that went underground into a mine, but maybe it was the tunnel. I'm not sure. But
There's a lot of stories of him in that visit, some of which are very.
oh, yeah, about him and his wife.
Well, he stood on the front porch of the Odeon in Dayton and did a talk that never happened.
That never happened. See, that's the influencing perceptions of history. How we retell that story so it's
Yeah,
correct.
he never came to Dayton.
Yeah.
We should have.
Oh, yes, sir.
This farm reminded me of another farm with a sway back, but it was designed to have a sway back roof.
Oh.
And that's Walt Disney's
Oh.
big size farm, which is in Griffith Park,
Oh,
Los
wow.
Angeles.
Oh, wow.
And the engineering, when they had to restore the building, when they set it up on our site, it was interesting. The engineer, that sway back,
Safe and strong.
build that front.
Wow. Wow.
If you're ever in Los Angeles, go to the Los Angeles Live Steamers on either the first or second, third Sunday, and the barn is open.
The barn's open. And what's its historical significance? What was it? It was for Disney or
Los Angeles Live Steamers.
steamers? Okay. Okay. Any other questions?